All right, Internet, hello. It has been a little while. It's been about 2 weeks. It's been a week since I've posted anything for The Road Less Traveled. But I have a good excuse. And I'm quite excited about this because we may have discovered the path. The path of this whole project is The Road Less Traveled, figuring out what is my next road, what path do I want to take with my next chapter in life and career. The way that I came about stumbling across this path was actually I started out dedicating a week to researching cybersecurity. So I wanted to just basically understand the industry, the roles, the companies, the future of the industry, and all the stuff around this space, kind of a high-level view of figuring out what's going on in it. And after doing probably a week's worth of research, I realized, wow, this industry and the roles within it, the people within it, the projects they're working on, the things they're trying to achieve, the goals they're trying to accomplish, really align a lot with both my interests and also the quote-unquote positive impact I would like to hopefully leave on the planet when I leave. I did some reflection actually after researching for about a week, and I thought more about how in my previous roles and in my childhood and throughout my life basically, there was a lot of stuff I was doing around this interest but never actually allowing myself to fully immerse myself in this interest. But that will be a different topic for a different day, because today's post is actually about accelerated learning. And the reason we're talking about accelerated learning today is because I actually decided, after doing the week's worth of research into the industry, I wanted to better know kind of the foundational elements and the fundamental concepts that are embedded in the space. So what's the lingo that these people speak, and what are the topics that most entry-level positions need to know? So I did some research kind of figuring out what that is, and I kept on coming across a lot of certifications. So cybersecurity seems to be a certification-heavy space. I'm assuming it's due to the fact that it's so new and there's not many universities that have four-year degrees. And also it's one of those industries that are moving so quickly that if you do get a four-year degree, you're not necessarily, the information is not as relevant as it would be if you got updated certification. And another reason probably they're certification heavy is when you think about cybersecurity, they're really acting as kind of digital bodyguards for different networks, and knowing that someone is certified in a certain way of understanding certain things probably brings a lot of reassurance to big companies, small companies, and a variety of different industries. With all that said, I came across a few certifications that tended to be repeated by a lot of people in the space, and they mentioned that there was this one specific certification called the CompTIA Security Plus, which is, I guess, a foundational certification for people to kind of get their foot in the door in this industry. Because what it does is it covers a lot of the foundations, which is what I was seeking, and I thought, what better way to learn about the fundamentals of cybersecurity than to get a certification in it? And instead of taking the average, I think I came across a few different statistics, but it seemed to be the average test taker would study between 3 and 6 months before actually pursuing this certification, this exam. And I thought, why not try to do it in 2.5 weeks? An important thing I want to get across before I start talking about my routine and the accelerated learning piece and kind of my strategy around this is the time is irrelevant, because you'll come across a lot of videos online, you'll come across blog posts, etc., about people talking about this exam and how they finished it in a short period of time. And that's not what I want to get across in this video. What I want to get across before I start the tactics I used is that the time is irrelevant. And it all depends on the amount of experience you had prior, the amount of time you had to study, and also the environment structured around you. So if it takes you 2 years to get to pass an exam or to learn a concept, irrelevant if it's an exam or not, that's fine, as long as you enjoy the content and you're actually understanding what you're learning. So, like I said, I decided to try to get this done within 2.5 weeks, and I luckily succeeded. I can proudly say that I am CompTIA Security Plus certified. And the two questions I think anyone should ask themselves before actually trying to go on kind of an immersive journey, because that's what I see this as, this accelerated learning process, at least the way that I approach it, is complete immersion. And there's really two questions you need to ask yourself. One is, am I genuinely interested in this topic? Meaning that in a week's time, after I've done 7 days of 7-hour study sessions, am I still going to be interested in this really niche topic? And then the other thing you need to ask yourself is, do I have the right environment for this kind of immersive sprint? And what I mean by that is, a lot of people talk about determination and discipline and the ability to just go hard at it and bang your head until you learn. But I think willpower, discipline, and all that stuff it's almost useless in a way, because if you don't have the environment that's susceptible for you to succeed, then you won't. And when I speak about environment, specifically for me, I needed to make sure that I had no social commitments in the next coming weeks. I needed to make sure that my calendar was completely free the entire time. I needed to make sure that there were no distractions. So I needed to kind of remove all distractions from my routine for the next coming weeks, so I could solely focus on this 7 to 8 hours a day. So that's first thing, environment and interest. Those two things need to be aligned for you actually to try something like this. So before going into this, I'll discuss kind of like my routine and then some of the resources I use. And also I wrote a post on this. I always write a post on all these because I prefer to write than do videos, because you can get more details out and you can actually provide more resources. So go to the post if you're interested in more details. And let's talk about the resources. So the resources I studied for this exam are 3 textbooks, 1 online video course, 1 video study session course, and a bunch of Googling, and also a lot of practice exams. So whenever learning a specific topic, it's important for me to choose a single topic that's my primary source, and then everything else is secondary. And when I choose one primary source, it needs to be something that resonates with me and I feel like is detailed enough to get me through what I'm trying to achieve. And the topic, or the book I chose, was I think Getting Ahead certifications, like getting ahead something. I'll show a screenshot here. And basically the textbook I chose, I dedicated 1 day per chapter. And that was my primary source, as I mentioned. So I solely focused the majority of my brain power on this book. And in addition to that, there was a lot of other supplementary, like I said, video courses I would watch and study sessions I would listen to. So let's break this routine down. So I had, there was 11 chapters in the book, so I gave it 11 days. And then I had 6 practice exams, which I gave myself 6 days. So each chapter and each test would get a single day. And let me walk through kind of like the routine. So in the morning, I would read 1 chapter. So I would read it usually on my phone. So I'd read it as if it was just like a narrative. So reading through it, not necessarily taking notes or stopping to pause and highlight stuff, just going through it and kind of doing a first pass. And after doing the first pass, I would usually go to do a workout or something. And during any of my workouts, during washing dishes, cooking, folding clothes, any kind of like life admin I had to do, I would always be listening to the study sessions that Professor Messer would actually play. And in these study sessions, Professor Messer is one of the popular instructors for this exam. He would kind of do 10 questions in the beginning of the study session with a bunch of people, and then he would answer a bunch of audience questions related to the topic. And I would listen to that in the background while doing other things, so I could both test myself on the questions and also kind of get an idea of what other people are asking and the different problems they're having and the way that he looks at certain things. So after doing that in the afternoon, I would actually reread the same chapter I read in the morning. But this time I would read it more thoroughly. So I would go through and I'd pull out all the main topics and subtopics and actually take notes on those. And instead of just copying what the author said into a Word document, I actually would rewrite the concepts in my own words as if I were explaining to someone else. For me, that actually helps it resonate more. And then after doing 2 kind of read-throughs for the chapter, after I finished the notes, there was 15 to 20 questions at the end of each chapter. So what I would do is I would take the quiz and then I would check the wrong answers and I would see exactly why the answer was wrong. And I would research further into that topic if I didn't understand it. And then in the evening, so before I went to sleep, after dinner, I would actually watch these video courses while going to sleep. So these video courses that this individual made, his name's Professor Messer. It's a long list of video courses related to this topic. So I would watch snippets of those before going to sleep every single night. And the videos I would watch, actually, I would specifically pull out the videos because he has a long list of like 120 videos or something in relation to the objectives for this exam. What I would do is I would watch the videos correlated to the chapters that I read in the book. So I was reaffirming the things I've learned in the chapter, but from a different perspective, which for me helps a lot, because if you get one person's perspective and they talk about a topic that doesn't make sense and you hear somebody else say it in a different way, then it actually makes that topic simpler, and it actually connects for you, and that connects for me as well. So we've gotten through the 11 days of this textbook, right? So that's kind of the routine for that. And then after, what I would do is I would actually do practice exams. So I gave myself 6 days for 6 practice exams. And so in the morning, what I would do is I would take the exam and I would time myself, because this exam was timed. It was going to be 90 questions for 90 minutes. So I would basically give myself 75 minutes for a 75 question test, 80 minutes for an 80 question test, and 90 minutes for a 90 question test. And the resources I used for this were mainly, there were 2 textbooks that I would use for practice exams, and then also I purchased Professor Messer's practice exams as well, and I would time myself on those. And after going through those in the morning, I would revisit them in the afternoon, and I would go through all the wrong answers, and I would thoroughly research each of the answers that I got wrong to understand exactly why I got it wrong, and understand why the right answer was right. Because for me, it was important to not really focus on the score, but focus on why I got answers wrong and understand the kind of the rationale behind each of the questions and each of the answers. And the last tactic I used here, because that was 11 days for the book, 6 days for the practice exams, and then after that, I decided to take the exam, which I'll talk about in a second. And before doing that, so another tactic I used was teaching. So for me, to learn a topic, one of the best ways to learn a topic is actually to explain it to someone else. And what I did is I started this Cyber Snacks series. So I'll show a little kind of video clip or screenshot here of some of the posts. But the premise of this is basically short snippets that I would write in the morning before my day started. So after I finished journaling, I would write maybe for 10 minutes or so, or 15 minutes on a topic that I struggle to understand. And I would have to research it a bit further to understand some of the history behind it, some of the context around it, and kind of understand it better in examples. And then I would have to explain it through a short post. That would be maybe 5 to 6 paragraphs, some diagrams, etc. And then I would post that on LinkedIn, and that would be a Cyber Snack series that I wrote, and it's 30 days, and I'm still doing it now. Obviously not related to the exam, but it's still a way for me to consistently always research new topics in the space and write about them. And for me, explaining anything to anyone is always the hardest part of learning, because if you can explain something simply or in a way that somebody else understands, then that means that you have a better grasp of that topic, which is quite important. One thing I want to leave you with here is that when preparing for anything, so it could be learning a new topic for a job that you have to do or a project you're going to be on or an exam you have to take, the important thing here is I, and many of you I'm sure, tend to prepare too much. So you can prepare to a point where you're actually procrastinating, and you can turn preparation into procrastination. And the thing that I think to myself here is the whole gladiator concept, where you're a gladiator in the ring and you have to test your abilities. And there's a point when you're preparing that you say, okay, enough is enough. I need to test myself. I need to jump into the ring, and I need to figure out exactly if I have the abilities that I think I have. And you can do that through practice exams, and that might be nice, but that's not the real thing. The real thing has a lot more pressure. You're a lot more anxious, and you need to be able to perform under pressure. So my advice to me, my past me, and my advice to you is to prepare to a point where you feel like you're ready, and then once you're ready, try to execute. See if you have those abilities. And what's next for me? So anytime you do any accelerated learning process like this that's completely immersive, you really restrict. So for me, I really restricted myself to only consuming content related to this exam. The only time I ever got to consume anything unrelated to the exam was over dinner with my wife. We would watch a show or a movie, and that's it. So once you've done that for 2.5 weeks, you have a huge kind of psychological pressure lifted off of you, where you have the freedom to explore a variety of other topics. And I'm going to stay in cybersecurity because I mentioned I feel like this is the path for me. But that means I get to explore other things without having to solely focus on the objectives of this exam. So I'm pretty excited to read a lot of different books. I'm excited to take some more online courses. And I'm also excited to meet a lot of people in the space. I'm going to start reaching out to more people and figuring out what it's like to live this life. And is it everything that we think it is out to be? Because there are always negatives with any role. I've learned that through my past life. So yeah, there's a lot to come. So stay tuned. And internet, I'll see you next week.